Hello everyone, I'm Dmitry, Navi World of Tanks team player, and today I will talk about the basics of the shooting in the game. Shooting is one of the key aspects in World of Tanks. The results of the battle depends on the ability to shoot and to damage the enemy. And that's why we will try to understand everything related to shooting. In World of Tanks settings, there are flexible options of adjusting your crosshair. You can adjust both arcade and sniper crosshairs however you like. You can change central marker, aim circle or weapon marker. So there are three major types of sight in the game: arcade sight, sniper sight and artillery. And there is nothing to tell about the artillery one, it's just the view from above. That's why today I will talk more about arcade and sniper sights and how to use them. Regarding the sights, there are two types of sights if you use the usual tank, arcade and sniper. Arcade sight is useful only when you need to focus on the surroundings, spin the opponents, or make an offhand shot. On the long distance, arcade sight is almost useless, but sometimes it helps to hit the target with unbelievable precision. While moving, you should prefer arcade sight as well, but on the first gear you can also use sniper sight. Sniper sight should be used in almost all the situations when you stand still. It doesn't matter if you shoot from 100 meters or 500 meters, sniper sight will always be more effective. Sniper sight will improve your chances of hitting and will allow you to aim at weak points in armor. Also, I want to give a special attention to auto-aim. Of course, it doesn't guarantee a high chance of hitting, it just allows you to feel more confident in a close combat. Auto-aim points directly at the middle of the tank model, and considering the tanks can move, it's not always effective. I use auto-aim quite often, regardless of the fact it aims directly in the middle. It's very effective when you're shooting targets with weak armor. If the tank has a good armor, I would advise to aim at the weak points and not to rely on auto-aim. Also, I often use auto-aim to shoot from behind the cover or an obstacle. It allows me to shoot before the opponent. You just put auto-aim on him, leave the cover, and while not driving out completely, you shoot already. You have high probability of hitting. If you practice a bit, you will be able to do that. Also, I use auto-aim to shoot immobile targets with weak armor. Right before the shot, I put auto-aim on the enemy and the shell hits exactly the middle of the tank. When shooting, you have to consider a whole lot of factors. Firstly, it's the distance of the target. If it's more than 500 meters, your chances of hitting are not so good. Secondly, you have to consider the dispersion circle. I advise you to wait for it in most cases. Only if the enemy is escaping you can shoot without it. Also, you have to consider your opponent's armor. Every tank has armor, but it's not the same in different places. Usually, tank is most armored in front, and at the back armor is usually the thinnest. Roof and bottom are also very vulnerable. The longer the distance, the lower are chances of penetrating armor. However, it doesn't affect high explosive and high explosive anti-tank shells. They don't lose penetration over distance. There are four types of shells which you can use in game. They are armor piercing, high explosive, armor piercing, composite, rigid and high explosive anti-tank. They differ a lot from each other. The most similar shells are AP and APCR. APCR often has higher penetration, but it loses more penetration over distance and has lower normalization. AP shells has normalization of about 4 degrees. High explosive shells usually have more potential damage, but insignificant armor penetration. They are very effective for interrupting capture of the base and for finishing low hit points enemies, because they are guaranteed to damage even without penetration the armor. There is also a lot of different stuff you shouldn't forget while shooting. Do you remember about shot leading? Every weapon has different speed of shells. Also, all of the shells in the game fly in a parabola. That's why it's very important to get used to different timings of the shells' flight time, so you won't mistake while choosing the lead. To calculate the shot leading correctly, you have to consider three major factors: target movement speed, distance to target, and speed of the shell. Don't forget that enemies can move not only perpendicularly to you, but in your direction. To successfully hit moving targets, you have to gain game experience. Also, watch over the factors that can influence your accuracy in a negative way. It can be damaged weapon, or poorly skilled crew, or contusion of a gunner, or of a tankman performing gunner's duties. Also mind that there is a lot of equipment and consumables to improve accuracy and aim speed. It can be IT-vertical stabilizers, or different sweets for crew like extra rations, chocolate, or case of cola. Sometimes there are situations where you can see a small part of enemy's body, turret, suspension, and so on. While on complete dispersion, you should try to aim at any visible part of the enemy, if you are certain that you will be able to penetrate him in that part. The only exception would be vehicles with low ammo or drum magazine where you have to aim accurately. The special art of shooting is needed when you play tanks with automatic loader. Playing them, you have no right to wrong, because sometimes your reload time can cost your life. These were basics of shooting in the world of tanks, which every player should know. I hope you like this video. If that's so, press like button, subscribe and watch other gaming advices on HyperX channel.